Hello, and welcome to another edition of Sun Dragon Tips and Tricks. I'm Rebecca. I'm the owner of Sun Dragon Art and Fiber in downtown Brevard, North Carolina. Monday, my house. Um, a really quick video today in the grand span of like the videos I make because I'm working on tax stuff. There's all kinds of craziness going on. And this is one that I don't know so much about making some whiteboard videos for. It's a little complicated to do that. Let me know if you'd like me to try to draw it out and I can make an updated video in the future. However, this based on what I'm currently working on. I am currently working on Katrin Schubert's Love Spoon hat. And it's got a lot of brioche, and she makes patterns dance with brioche increases and decreases. And I have made a bunch of videos on brioche, and I realized I don't think I've done any. I've done some on how to get started, brioche knit, brioche purl, and fixing mistakes. And so this video is not going to address basic brioche and the tips that go into that. Please refer. I've made two sets of videos on those, an earlier one and a more updated one, on the tips to make sure your brioche, just straight brioche knit and brioche purl, which are done with different colors on this, to make sure that that goes correctly. And I will try to link that in the description of this video. And this video will also be part of my brioche playlist. Right now, today, all I'm going to do, keep it bite-sized, right? Keep it simple, is an increase called brioche knit yarn over brioche knit. It's often the alphabet soup that you will see is bkryobrk, and it's one of those like, what? And this hat that I'm working on is written for DK weight yarn. However, and I thought, oh, this is perfect. I can make a video on this. And then I realized I'm double stranding some frogged yarn. I'm trying to reuse yarn so I don't waste yarn. And the two strands might make things look a little more complicated. So I also have my Rebel 2 that I'm making, that all these little like flower looking Rebel insignia designs on the edge are done with brioche increases and decreases. Now the ones on this shawl are a little more complicated. This is more than just a BRK. This down here, like where this little spot happens, that's an example of a BRK. But I'm going to show you on this one. We'll zoom in really close. I'm using fingering weight, but just one strand of each color. I'll zoom way in on this so you can see what's going on. So you can see what happens. And I'll preface this by saying, brioche, you knit each row twice, once with your knit color and then with your purl color, usually. And so I'm going to go over just visually how it looks to create this stitch first with your knit color, and then what you do to it with your purl color so that everything is set in place. So it's both parts of an increase row where this happens. So let's get to it. So once again, I'm going to show you on this how we did things on this one. The spots down in here where you've got two knit stitches popping out of a hole, but there's also a purl stitch in there. On this hat, my gold is my knit color and my blue is my purl color. Now remember, I was saying before, this is not going to be a video on how to do basic brioche knitting and brioche purling. Some of the lingo might come up in this, but really if you're starting from scratch, like if you just want to do what's down here, I recommend my intro brioche videos. I have one on knit and one on purl, setup rows, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to take this one. I don't know if you can tell, but my pink is my knit color. If I look right in here, my pink is my knit color and my blue is my purl color. And one of the things that helps brioche go really smoothly is you try to keep in mind, as much as you can, that when there's no increasing and decreasing, it should look like you've got like this row right here. You're going to have single stitches of one color and a stitch with a wrap, a stitch of the other color with a wrap of your single color. It's kind of how you tell everything's going okay. It alternates single, other color with the wrap, single, other color. And the wrap should always be the opposite color in 2-color brioche than the stitch that it is wrapping around. So this is a fully completed row on the way back. I'm about to start a row here. And this one, these little guys down here are made from way more than what we're about to do. The brioche knit, yarn over, brioche knit. This has many more going on in it. We're not going to replicate that one. We're just going to do the most basic of increases. I'm going to leave this guy hanging where he is. I'm going to come, try not to get my yarns too tangled. End stitches often defy the whole a stitch with its wrap thing. I'm just going to knit this edge stitch. My purl stitch is going to, I'm yarn in front to slip a purl stitch so that my yarn over goes over him. So, and he's big because he's just hanging there. We'll come back to him later. Brioche knit right here. I'm sure on my actual shawl, I've got increases on the edge here too. I'm going to go in a few stitches. So yarn forward so I can slip and end up with the yarn over. I'm going to brioche knit one more time, just a regular brioche knit. Yarn forward. Okay, now here's the deal. It will say yarn forward, slip one, yarn over type of thing is the language they use a lot, but I've got my slip one here. A brioche knit, yarn over, brioche knit. It's all going to happen in one stitch. So we're going to go into the stitch and its wrap. A brioche knit is knitting a stitch with its wrap. That's really all it is. It's called a BRK or a bark, but it is, you're getting the stitch and its wrap. So if there's no wrap there, either you're knitting the wrong stitch or it lost its wrap and you need to fix it. So to do a BRK, YO, BRK, I'm going to come into the stitch in its wrap. I'm going to wrap around. This might look a little different if you're continental knitting, and I'm going to pull up. And then I'm not done with the stitch. It all has to happen into the same stitch here. So I'm going to do my yarn over. Just going to keep everything else hanging down here. Bring my yarn to the front so it comes up and over. I'm going to go into the same hole here and do what I like to call the 3/4 of the stitch. And now I have my brioche knit, my yarn over, my brioche knit. So now it can come off of my needle. And it's going to look a little like you've made that stitch really, really big. So let's do a yarn over, slip one yarn over. The language of slip one yarn over always tends to mess people up because they often will do okay, I just knit, so I'm going to slip one and I'm going to yarn over. Nope. The yarn needs to come over your slip stitch. So when you're on a knit row, whenever you're done with your brioche knit, increase or not, get your yarn in front so you can slip and the yarn will just naturally come over. You want to put spaces. If you're making something up, you often like to have spaces between, not to do, unless you want a shawl that's coming out really fast. I'm going to do a regular brioche knit, which is just knitting a stitch in its wrap. Bring my yarn to the front to slip. And then let's show you another one where brioche knit, so go into the stitch in its wrap, wrap the yarn around and pull it back to the front. Yarn over, don't do anything, leave this on the needle. Yarn over, bring your needle back into the same hole, wrap around and pull up a loop again. Now you can let it come off of your left needle. So we'll have 3 loops. I'm going to do a yarn forward and slip, always slip the other color, brioche knit the stitch in its wrap. Yarn forward before you slip the single of the other color. Let's show you this one more time, really, really slowly. So BRK, YO, BRK. It's all going to happen. Often it's in a pattern all smushed together because it's all going to happen in the same stitch. So we're going to come in to knit, stitch in its wrap around and pull that back under, but don't take it off. Bring your yarn to the front to wrap over your right needle, come back into that same hole of the stitch in its wrap around and pull it back up. And now when you've got 3 loops of your main color on your right needle, you can let it off your left needle. So if we go back and look at this places, I did it in 3 places. The places where I did the brioche knit, yarn over, brioche knit. We can see a column of knit stitches coming up and 3 of the same color coming out of it. Column of knit stitches with 3 coming out of it in 3 different spots here. Now this is half of your increase row. Then the other half is setting these in place. So what we want to do is we want to end up having it look like it does over here where we're alternating. What's really going to set this in place is what we do with the pearl color yarn next. So we're going to imagine I've knit across the row and I've slid it all back to the other side, because that's how you do brioche. You do each row twice, and I'll see you in just a second to show you what your contrast color, in my case, my blue, what my blue is going to do. Okay, so now we're at the other end. We've slid over to do our second pass of this row, and the outside edge is pink. We're just slipping him to get ready. Now I have a stitch, a blue stitch, and it's wrap right away, and the blue color is purling. The pink color was knitting, so I'm going to brioche purl this. I like to call it a burp. I'm going to slip my stitch of the other color. I'm going to wrap. This is what you regularly do across a row. It's time to brioche purl. You're purling a stitch and it's wrapped together. Slip. The yarn's already in front for purl rows, so you don't need to bring the yarn to the front, but the yarn should be in front before any slip stitch in brioche. I've slipped my knit. I'm going to do my yarn over, which means going over and back to the front so I can purl again. And here's my brioche purl. Now here's my first brioche knit, yarn over, brioche knit. So I just brioche purled. So I would slip my next stitch. If it was a single knit, we're going to treat it like a single knit and bring our yarn over, because all slip stitches need to get wraps. Now this guy, he's not a brioche purl, but we're going to set him as a purl right now. So we're going to go ahead and purl him, get our needle in there and purl him, and treat the last stitch like a regular knit stitch, where we're going to slip and we're going to wrap. Now what that does, I get these ironed out here, is it continues the slips, the wraps like to jig jog, but it continues the pattern of, we have a purl, brioche knit with a wrap, purl, brioche knit with a wrap, purl, this is a knit with a wrap, purl, knit with a wrap. We're setting it in place as now they're going to be established stitches. I've got my purl and wrap right here, so I'm going to brioche purl this. I got a single knit that I can slip and wrap. I'm going to brioche purl. Now I've hit another one of these increases. It's really important that you recognize them when they come, and you also know that it's nothing too scary. We just brioche purled, so we're going to slip and wrap. We're going to purl him. I know it's not a brioche purl, but it sets him in place for later. We're going to slip and wrap. And again, I've got a couple of things here of brioche purl, the stitch in its wrap, single stitch gets a wrap, brioche purl. Now I'm going to slip and wrap is exactly what I should do, even though this looks funny. This middle guy gets purled, and I'm going to slip and wrap. And this is where I ended my other one, so what's on the other side looks a little funny. If it had its wrap in place, we would be brioche purling. I'm just going to leave those guys hanging here. That's all I did of this row just to show you. And right here, we've got 3 stitches where there was 1. It adds 2 stitches to do this. Right here again, we've got 3 stitches where there was 1, and right here. And again, the yarn overs like to try to jig jog a little bit, but if you keep them separate, now this row is indistinguishable from what we started with in terms of single purl stitches and knit stitches with wraps. What started with 3 stitches all pink now is set up to be worked in the same way that brioche is worked. They are now established stitches with our alternating stitches and stitches with wraps, and you're ready to go. So thanks for joining us for the brioche knit yarn over brioche knit, the most basic of increases in brioche. Some of the basic decreases involve on this little guy ones that slant left and right, and we may try to do those another week. There are more complicated ones as well, for like you saw on the Rebel 2, increasing a bunch into 1 stitch, and then there are ones where you can decrease like 2 stitches in one, or do a real flippy floppy. We're going to take us a piece at a time. When I have a chance, I will do the brioche left and brioche right leaning decreases. I will probably make separate videos on each of those because they're done a little bit differently, but these are going to be little more bite-sized chunks. No whiteboard, but let me know if you'd like me to try. Some of these, there's so much going on, it's kind of hard to map out with drawings. Anyway, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Subscribing is free. We also have memberships if you'd like to be a patron over here or on YouTube, or you can go to patreon.com/sundragon to support the work that we do here, and we really appreciate it. As I always like to say, may your crafting be filled with joy and confidence. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.